The alarm cut through the quiet darkness at 5:30 a.m., but Andre was already awake. He had been for the past hour, his mind racing with all the possible questions he might be asked today. Carefully, he silenced the alarm and slipped out of bed, trying not to disturb the peaceful morning quiet of the small apartment he shared with his roommate. The wooden floor creaked under his feet as he made his way to the bathroom. The mirror revealed the dark circles under his eyes, evidence of another restless night. Andre splashed cold water on his face, the shock jolting his system fully awake. Today wasn't just any day. Today could change everything. In the kitchen, he brewed a strong cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the small space as he pulled his only suit from the closet. It had been his graduation present from his mother 2 years ago. Though slightly worn at the cuffs, it was still impressive enough for an interview. The navy blue fabric had held up well through 6 previous interviews in the past 8 months. None had panned out, but today felt different. Today was Horizon Technologies, the company everyone in his graduating class had dreamed of joining. Andre set up the ironing board in the living room, carefully pressing each crease in his pants, making sure the lines were perfectly straight. Next came the white shirt, each wrinkle smoothed away with methodical precision. The ritual calmed his nerves as steam rose around him. "This one's for you, Dad," he whispered to himself, remembering his father's hands showing him how to tie a tie when he was just 10 years old. His father had passed away during Andre's sophomore year of college. Cancer, fast and merciless. The memory still stung, but it also fueled him. As he knotted his tie, Andre's phone lit up with a text from his roommate, who had left early for his shift at the hospital. "Knock 'em dead today." Andre smiled and typed back a quick thanks before checking his email one last time. The interview confirmation was still there, scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp at Horizon's downtown headquarters. His portfolio sat ready on the coffee table, a leather folder containing his resume, engineering certifications, and samples of his work. Every piece had been reviewed a dozen times. He'd stayed up late redesigning parts of it after getting feedback from his former professor. The student loans app on his phone pinged with its monthly reminder. The number made his stomach tighten. $63,892. The total had barely budged since graduation despite his part-time work at the hardware store. An entry-level position at Horizon would change that. Their starting salary would let him make real payments instead of just covering interest. At 6:45 a.m., Andre's phone rang. His mother's name flashed on the screen. "Morning, Mom," he answered, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Good morning, baby. Today's the day." Her voice carried that special mix of pride and worry that only mothers seem to master. "Did you eat something?" Andre glanced at his untouched coffee. "Just about to. You can't think on an empty stomach. Remember what your father always said. Your brain needs fuel just like your car doesn't." They finished together, both laughing softly at the familiar saying. "I miss him," Andre said simply. "He would be so proud of you. Engineering degree, big interview. He always knew you'd do amazing things." She paused. "You know what else he'd say today?" Andre smiled, knowing exactly what was coming. "Character speaks louder than credentials," they recited in unison. "That man was right about most things," his mother continued. "They're not just hiring your skills, they're hiring you. The whole person." After promising to call with news later, Andre made 2 pieces of toast and forced himself to eat, knowing his mother was right about needing fuel. The butterflies in his stomach protested. But he finished every bite at 7:30 a.m., dressed impeccably in his freshly pressed suit, portfolio in hand. Andre locked his apartment door and headed for the bus stop. The morning was bright but cool, typical for early spring. 3 buses and 45 minutes would get him downtown with plenty of time to spare. He never left important things to chance. The first bus was right on schedule. Andre found a seat near the middle, away from the morning chatter of regular commuters. He opened his portfolio one more time, reviewing key points about Horizon's recent projects. They had been making waves with sustainable energy solutions, and he had ideas he hoped might impress them, innovations he'd been working on since his senior design project. The city gradually transformed outside the windows as the bus moved from his neighborhood toward downtown. Small houses gave way to apartments, then office buildings grew taller and more frequent. The morning sun glinted off glass and steel as they entered the business district. Andre changed buses at the central terminal, checking his watch. 8:10 a.m. Still plenty of time. The second bus was crowded with office workers, their faces buried in phones or staring blankly ahead. Andre wondered how many of them loved their jobs, how many were just going through motions. He was determined to never become the latter. His phone buzzed with a text from his former classmate Taylor. "Good luck today. Remember, you've got this." Andre smiled. Taylor had been the one who'd tipped him off about the opening at Horizon in the first place. They'd stayed friends after graduation, helping each other through the often demoralizing job hunt. The third bus dropped him 6 blocks from Horizon's headquarters at 8:30 a.m. Andre decided to walk the rest of the way, giving himself time to collect his thoughts. The fresh air would clear his head. Downtown was alive with activity. People hurrying along sidewalks, traffic humming, construction crews already at work on a new building. Andre straightened his tie and checked his reflection in a shop window. The man looking back seemed older somehow, more serious than the college kid who'd walked across the stage 2 years ago. His thoughts drifted to what this job would mean. Beyond the salary and the prestige of working for Horizon, it was a chance to do what he'd dreamed of since high school, designing systems that could make a real difference in how people used energy. His senior project on microgrid technologies had won awards, but he wanted to see his ideas implemented in the real world. 3 blocks from Horizon, Andre stopped at a small cafe to use the restroom and check his appearance one final time. His hands trembled slightly as he smoothed his collar. The butterflies in his stomach had multiplied. "You've prepared for this," he told his reflection. "You know your stuff. Just be yourself." Back outside, Andre checked his watch, 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes early, just as he'd planned. He took a deep breath and started walking the final stretch. The Horizon Technologies building stood impressive against the sky, 30 stories of gleaming glass with their distinctive blue-green logo near the top. Andre had read about this building in architecture magazines, a model of sustainable design, generating nearly 40% of its own power. As he approached the final intersection, waiting for the light to change, Andre mentally rehearsed his introduction one more time. The position was for a junior systems engineer in their renewable energy division. According to the job description, they wanted someone with fresh ideas and a solid foundation in both electrical and mechanical engineering, precisely his background. The walk signal flashed, and Andre stepped off the curb, his mind already in the lobby of Horizon, imagining himself walking confidently to the reception desk, announcing his arrival for an interview that could redirect the entire course of his life. That's when he noticed it. An older model luxury sedan pulled awkwardly to the curb, 3 blocks down from Horizon's entrance. Next to it, an elderly man was bent over, apparently struggling with something on the ground. At first, Andre barely registered the scene, his mind so focused on the interview ahead, but as he got closer, he could see the man was trying to change a flat tire. White-haired and wearing an expensive but ill-fitting suit, the man seemed to be having trouble even getting the lug nuts loose. His hands shook visibly with the effort. Andre glanced at his watch, 8:50 a.m. Then at the Horizon building, its entrance now clearly visible just down the street. Then back at the struggling man whose frustrated sigh was audible even from 20 feet away. 10 minutes until his interview. The most important interview of his life. But something else echoed in his mind too. His father's voice, clear as if he were standing right there. Character speaks louder than credentials. Andre hesitated for only a second before changing direction. Heading toward the elderly man and his flat tire, Andre approached the elderly man, who was now attempting to brace himself against the car while struggling with a stubborn lug nut. His wrench kept slipping, and with each failed attempt his frustration became more visible. "Excuse me, sir. Do you need some help with that?" Andre asked, already setting his portfolio on a nearby bench. The old man straightened up slowly, his back clearly giving him trouble. He had the weathered face of someone who'd spent decades making difficult decisions. Deep lines around kind eyes that now showed both frustration and relief at Andre's appearance. "Oh, thank goodness," he said, wiping his brow with a handkerchief pulled from his pocket. "I'm afraid changing tires isn't my strong suit anymore. My hands don't work like they used to." He gestured toward the flat tire, the rim bent slightly where it had hit a pothole. Roadside assistance said they're backed up. At least an hour wait. Andre glanced at his watch, 8:52 a.m. His interview was in 8 minutes, just 3 blocks away. The responsible thing would be to point the man toward Horizon's building, suggest he wait in their lobby while roadside assistance came. But something in the man's eyes, a mixture of helplessness and dignity, made Andre hesitate. "I can help you get this changed," Andre heard himself say. "It won't take long." Relief washed over the old man's face. "That's mighty kind of you, young man. I don't know what I would have done otherwise." Andre removed his suit jacket carefully, folding it over the same bench where he'd placed his portfolio. He rolled up his sleeves and knelt to examine the situation. The spare tire was already out, but the man had barely loosened a single lug nut. "Let me take a look at what we're working with," Andre said, positioning the wrench on the first nut. He applied his weight, feeling the resistance. These hadn't been removed in years from the feel of it. With a grunt of effort, he finally broke the first one loose. "Sometimes they just need a bit more force." The old man watched with obvious admiration. "You've done this before." Andre nodded, already working on the second lug nut. "My dad taught me when I was 14. Said every man should know how to change a flat." The memory brought both warmth and a pang of sadness. He was big on self-reliance. "Sounds like a wise man," the elderly gentleman said, leaning against his car. "Don't see that kind of teaching much anymore." As Andre worked on the remaining lug nuts, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He knew without looking that it was his calendar reminder for the interview. 9 o'clock was approaching rapidly. A twinge of anxiety shot through him, but he kept working steadily. "I notice you're dressed rather formally for roadside assistance," the old man observed, eyeing Andre's tie and dress pants. "Am I keeping you from something important?" Andre hesitated, then shrugged as he removed the last lug nut. "Just an appointment. It'll work out how it's supposed to." The word surprised even him. 8 months of job searching, countless applications, and here he was, potentially throwing away his best opportunity. But somehow, looking at the elderly man who clearly couldn't manage this task alone, the decision felt right. "Well, I certainly appreciate your sacrifice," the man said quietly. "Not many would stop these days." Andre finished removing all the lug nuts, placing them carefully in the hubcap so they wouldn't roll away, another trick his father had taught him. He lifted the flat tire off, surprised by how heavy it felt. The man must have been struggling terribly. "So what's this appointment that you're missing?" the old man asked as Andre positioned the spare tire on the wheel hub. Andre's watch now read 9:05 a.m. The interview had started without him. His stomach sank, but he kept his hands steady. "A job interview," he admitted, beginning to thread the lug nuts back onto the bolts. "At Horizon Technologies. Just down the street, actually." He nodded in the direction of the gleaming building. The old man's eyebrows rose slightly. "Horizon? That's quite a place. What position?" "Junior systems engineer. In their renewable energy division." "Impressive," the man said, his tone shifting subtly. "What made you interested in that field?" Andre tightened each nut with careful precision before answering. "Energy is everything, right? We're facing huge challenges with climate change, resource depletion, but also huge opportunities. My senior project in college focused on microgrid technologies, ways smaller communities could generate and store their own power." He paused, realizing he was slipping into interview mode. "Sorry, that's probably more detail than you were looking for." "Not at all," the man said, his interest clearly genuine. "Please continue. What's your background?" As Andre worked on securing the spare tire, he found himself opening up about his education, his ideas, and even his struggles finding work in his field. The conversation flowed naturally, the old man asking insightful questions that revealed a surprising knowledge of engineering principles. "You seem to know a lot about renewable energy systems," Andre observed as he gave the final lug nut a last tightening twist. The old man smiled slightly. "I've picked up a few things over the years. Used to be in the business world myself. Still keep up with technological developments." Andre's phone buzzed again. 9:22 a.m. The interview would be well underway now if they hadn't already moved on to another candidate. He felt a mix of emotions. Disappointment certainly, but also an unexpected sense of peace. His father would have approved of this choice. Standing up, Andre noticed his once pristine white shirt was now smudged with dirt and grease. His hands were black with grime. Even if he rushed to Horizon now, he wasn't exactly presentable. "You've got quite a bit of road dirt there," the old man said, noticing Andre surveying the damage to his interview outfit. "Here." He offered his handkerchief. Andre tried to clean his hands, but it was a lost cause. The once immaculate shirt cuffs were stained dark with tire grime. "It's fine," he said, trying to keep the disappointment from his voice. "There will be other interviews." The old man watched him carefully, something unreadable in his expression. "You know, I feel terrible about this situation. You've missed an important opportunity to help a stranger." Andre shrugged, forcing a smile. "Like my dad always said, character speaks louder than credentials. Besides, I couldn't just leave you stranded here." "Character," the old man repeated, nodding slowly. "Yes, that's not something you can put on a resume, is it?" He gestured to the now functional spare tire. "This should get me to where I need to go, but it's not meant for long distances." Andre closed the trunk where he'd stored the flat tire and the tools. "You should have a mechanic look at it soon. They might be able to repair the original tire if the damage isn't too severe." The elderly gentleman straightened his suit jacket and extended his hand to Andre. "I can't thank you enough, young man. You've shown extraordinary kindness today." Andre shook his hand, conscious of the dirt still on his own palm despite his attempts to clean it. "Happy to help, sir. Anyone would have done the same." "I think we both know that's not true," the man replied, his eyes crinkling with a warm smile. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card case. "I insist on giving you a ride wherever you need to go. It's the least I can do." Andre glanced down the street toward Horizon's building, then at his watch again. 9:28 a.m. The interview would be nearly over by now. Still, maybe he could explain what happened. See if they'd reschedule. "Actually," he said, retrieving his suit jacket and portfolio from the bench, "if you wouldn't mind dropping me at Horizon, I'd appreciate it. Maybe they'll still see me." "Of course," the man said, opening the passenger door of his luxury sedan. "Horizon it is." As Andre slid into the smooth leather seat, he was struck by the immaculate interior of the car, all polished wood and soft leather that probably cost more than a year of his rent. The elderly man got in the driver's side with surprising agility, for someone who'd seemed so frail while trying to change the tire. "I never caught your name," the old man said as he started the engine, which purred to life almost silently. "Andre," he replied, still taking in the luxury surroundings. "Andre Thompson." The old man nodded and put the car in drive. "Well, Andre Thompson, you mentioned you were interviewing at Horizon. May I ask in which department?" "Renewable energy systems," Andre replied, trying not to worry about how his dirt-stained appearance would be received if he actually made it into the interview. "They're doing some incredible work with sustainable technology integration." The old man hummed in agreement as he smoothly pulled away from the curb. "They certainly are. And what exactly made you apply to Horizon specifically? There are many firms working in that space." Andre didn't notice the intensity with which the old man awaited his answer, too busy trying to rehearse what he might say to the receptionist at Horizon to explain his tardiness. The car moved forward, heading exactly where Andre had been walking just 30 minutes earlier, before an unexpected flat tire had potentially changed the course of his career. As the luxury car pulled away from the curb, Andre found himself answering the elderly man's question about why he'd chosen Horizon Technologies. "They're one of the few companies actually putting resources behind long-term solutions," Andre explained, forgetting momentarily about his disheveled appearance. "Most firms talk about sustainability, but Horizon is investing in technologies that might not pay off for years. That kind of vision is rare." The old man nodded thoughtfully, navigating the car with surprising skill for someone who'd appeared so helpless with the tire. "And what would you bring to a company like that?" Andre smiled despite his circumstances. "Well, I was planning to tell them about my microgrid research. My senior project focused on decentralized energy systems for rural communities." He patted his portfolio resting on his lap. "I've got all the designs right here. The basic idea is to combine solar, wind, and small-scale hydroelectric with smart storage solutions." "Sounds ambitious," the man remarked, slowing for a red light. "What makes your approach different?" The question was exactly what Andre had prepared for in his interview. Without thinking, he opened his portfolio and pulled out several diagrams. "Most current systems use a one-size-fits-all approach," he explained, pointing to his designs. "But I've developed a modular framework that adapts to each community's specific resources and needs. It's more expensive initially, but vastly more efficient long-term." The old man glanced at the diagrams with apparent interest. "And how would you scale something like this?" "That's the beauty of it," Andre said, warming to his subject. You don't have to scale up, you scale out. Each community becomes self-sufficient while still connecting to the larger grid. During peak production, they sell excess energy back. During shortfalls, they buy. The result is a more resilient system overall. As they talked, Andre noticed the man was taking a circuitous route to Horizon, but he didn't mind. This was the most engaged conversation he'd had about his ideas since graduation. The elderly gentleman asked insightful questions that pushed Andre to articulate aspects of his design he hadn't fully considered. "You've clearly thought this through," the man said after Andre explained how his system would integrate with existing infrastructure. "But tell me, why does this matter to you personally? Beyond the technical challenge?" Andre paused, surprised by the question. No one had asked him that before. "My grandmother lived in a small coastal town," he said finally. "When Hurricane Maria hit, they lost power for nearly 3 months. The centralized grid collapsed and they were low priority for repairs." He shook his head, remembering the phone calls. She was 78, living without refrigeration or air conditioning in that heat. Many elderly people in her community didn't survive. The old man's face softened. "I'm sorry to hear that. That's when I realized our current system isn't just inefficient, it's dangerous for the most vulnerable people. With microgrids, her town could have maintained basic services even when cut off from the main grid." They drove in silence for a moment before the old man spoke again. "You know, most young engineers I meet talk about innovation in terms of profit potential or technical elegance. It's refreshing to hear someone motivated by genuine human needs." Andre glanced at his watch. 9:36 a.m. His interview slot would definitely be over by now. A wave of disappointment washed over him, but he pushed it aside. "My dad was an electrician. He always said technology should serve people, not the other way around. Your father sounds like a wise man." "He was," Andre said quietly. "He passed away during my sophomore year." "I'm very sorry to hear that," the old man said, his voice genuinely sympathetic. "It's clear he left you with more than technical knowledge." As they approached Horizon's building, Andre looked down at his dirt-stained shirt and greasy hands. "I don't think they'll be too impressed with me showing up like this nearly 40 minutes late." The old man pulled to the curb across from the towering glass building. "You never know. Sometimes life's detours lead us exactly where we need to go." Andre gathered his portfolio, trying to wipe a smudge from the leather cover. "I appreciate the ride, sir, and I hope you get that flat fixed properly." "Before you go," the elderly man said, "may I ask you something?" Andre paused with his hand on the door handle. "Of course. If you could go back to that moment when you saw me struggling with the tire, knowing you would miss this interview, would you still have stopped to help?" The question hung in the air. Andre considered it seriously. "Yes," he said finally. "I would. My dad always told me that how we treat people when there's nothing in it for us, that's the true test of character. I couldn't have walked past you and felt good about myself no matter what job was waiting." The old man smiled slightly. "Even if I told you that decision likely cost you the position at Horizon?" Andre shrugged. "There will be other opportunities, but I'd have to live with myself either way." The elderly gentleman reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, holding it out to Andre. "I admire that perspective. Mr. Thompson, more than you know." Andre took the card and glanced down at it. His eyes widened as he read the name embossed in elegant script. Harold Richardson, founder and CEO, Horizon Technologies. His head snapped up, looking at the elderly man with new eyes. "You're the person you were supposed to meet at 9 o'clock?" Harold finished with a slight smile. "The position reports directly to me. I like to conduct the final interviews personally for certain roles." Andre stared in disbelief, the business card suddenly feeling very heavy in his hand. "So this whole time, I was having car trouble and you genuinely helped me," Harold said. "Nothing more complicated than that. Though I admit it's turned into quite an unconventional interview process." Andre looked down at his dirty clothes and then back at the CEO. "I don't understand. Was this some kind of test?" Harold shook his head. "Not at all. Pure coincidence. But I do believe in paying attention to the coincidences life sends our way." He gestured toward the Horizon building. "Most of the candidates I meet are technically qualified. Their resumes are impressive, their answers well rehearsed. But character, that's harder to evaluate in a traditional interview setting." Andre sat in stunned silence as Harold continued. "You showed me something valuable today, something no resume could convey. You demonstrated problem-solving skills, clear communication, and most importantly, integrity. You chose to help someone in need, even at significant personal cost. I just did what anyone would do, Andre said automatically. Harold laughed softly. We both know that's not true. Most people would have walked right by, especially with an important interview minutes away. He checked his watch. Speaking of which, I think we should head inside. My assistant is probably wondering where I've been. You still want to interview me? Andre asked, looking down at his stained clothes. Interview? Harold smiled broadly. Young man, we've been having an interview for the past 45 minutes, and it's been far more revealing than anything we could have done in my office. He extended his hand across the car. I think you'll be an excellent addition to our renewable energy team, Mr. Thompson. That is, if you're still interested in the position. Andre stared at the offered hand, his mind racing to catch up with this sudden turn of events. Yes, absolutely. I'm definitely interested. As they shook hands, Harold nodded toward the building. Then let's go inside and handle the paperwork. I think you'll find our approach to energy solutions aligns well with your thinking on microgrids. In fact, we've been considering a pilot program that sounds remarkably similar to what you described. Andre gathered his portfolio with hands that weren't quite steady. As they exited the car together, he noticed a parking space near the entrance with a small sign. Reserved, H. Richardson, CEO. Harold caught his glance and smiled. I usually park there, but today's detour proved far more valuable than a convenient parking spot. Walking toward the gleaming doors of Horizon Technologies, Andre thought about the chain of events that had led to this moment. If he'd walked past that stranded car, if he'd prioritized his interview over helping an elderly stranger, he would have arrived perfectly on time, perfectly dressed, and completely missed the real opportunity that fate had placed in his path. The glass doors of Horizon Technologies slid open silently as Andre and Harold approached. Andre felt painfully aware of his disheveled appearance next to the CEO's polished professionalism. His once white shirt was now smudged with tire grime, his hands still bearing traces of dirt despite his attempts to clean them. The lobby was impressive, all sleek lines and sustainable materials. A massive living wall covered one side, plants thriving under carefully calibrated lights. The company logo, an elegant blue-green horizon line, dominated the opposite wall. Everything spoke of innovation and forward-thinking. At the reception desk, a professional-looking woman glanced up, her expression changing from routine welcome to surprise when she recognized Harold. Mr. Richardson, we were getting worried. Your 9 o'clock appointment has been waiting, and the hiring committee— Thank you, Diane, Harold interrupted smoothly. Could you please inform the committee that I'll be joining them shortly? And this, he gestured to Andre, is Mr. Thompson. He'll be joining us as well. Diane looked at Andre, taking in his stained clothes with a quick, professional glance that revealed nothing of her thoughts. Of course, sir. Should I have someone bring Mr. Thompson a fresh shirt from the executive closet? Harold turned to Andre. Would you like that? We keep some extras for emergencies. Andre hesitated. Part of him wanted to look presentable, but another part felt there was something important about staying exactly as he was, evidence of the unusual path that had brought him here. I'm fine as I am, he decided. If that's acceptable. Harold nodded with what looked like approval. Very good. Diane, please let security know Mr. Thompson will need a temporary badge. We'll be heading up shortly. As Diane made the necessary calls, Harold led Andre toward a bank of elevators at the back of the lobby. Those plants aren't just decorative, Harold explained, nodding toward the living wall. They're part of our air filtration system, 30% more efficient than traditional methods. Andre looked at the wall with new appreciation. Biomimicry in practice. Exactly, Harold said as they stepped into an elevator. He pressed the button for the 30th floor, the top of the building. We try to apply natural principles throughout our designs. As the elevator rose swiftly, Andre's stomach fluttered with a mixture of nerves and excitement. I still can't believe this is happening, he admitted. An hour ago I was just hoping to make it to an interview on time. Harold chuckled. Life rarely follows our carefully laid plans, does it? Sometimes that's for the best. He paused, studying Andre. You know, I've been doing this for over 40 years. Built Horizon from nothing. Do you know what I've learned is the scarcest resource in business? Andre considered the question seriously. Innovation? Capital? Integrity, Harold said simply. Technical skills can be taught. Money can be raised. But character, that's innate. The elevator doors opened onto a floor that offered a breathtaking view of the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. Welcome to Horizon, Mr. Thompson. Andre stepped out, momentarily speechless as he took in the panorama before him. The entire city stretched out below, buildings catching the morning light. In the distance he could see the university where he'd studied. Quite a view, isn't it? Harold said, leading him down a corridor. I find it helps maintain perspective. Reminds us what we're working for. They approached a large conference room where several people sat around a polished table. Through the glass walls, Andre could see them consulting papers and checking watches. One woman was speaking, gesturing with apparent frustration. The hiring committee, Harold explained. They've been interviewing candidates all week. Shall we join them? Andre swallowed hard and nodded. As they entered, the conversation abruptly ceased. All eyes turned to Harold, then shifted to Andre, taking in his dirty shirt and the portfolio clutched in his hand. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay, Harold began, guiding Andre to a seat beside him. I'd like to introduce Andre Thompson. A woman at the head of the table, Andre recognized her name from emails as Dr. Chen, the head of engineering, glanced at her tablet. We don't have an Andre Thompson scheduled until tomorrow afternoon. Consider this an acceleration of the timeline, Harold replied with a slight smile. Mr. Thompson and I have already conducted an extensive interview this morning. The committee exchanged glances. A man in his 40s with a carefully trimmed beard leaned forward. May I ask about the unusual circumstances? He nodded toward Andre's stained shirt. Certainly, David, Harold said. Mr. Thompson happened upon me this morning when I had a flat tire near the building. Despite being on his way to this interview, he stopped to help. Sacrificed his punctuality and his appearance to assist someone in need. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Andre felt their evaluating gazes but sat straight, meeting their eyes directly. During our subsequent conversation, Harold continued, he demonstrated not only technical knowledge but a genuine passion for sustainable solutions driven by real human needs. His microgrid concept for rural communities aligns perfectly with our Community Resilience Initiative. Dr. Chen looked at Andre with new interest. The CRI is still in early development. We haven't announced it publicly, which makes Mr. Thompson's independent arrival at similar concepts all the more impressive, Harold replied. He turned to Andre. Would you mind sharing your approach with the committee? Just as you explained it to me in the car. For a moment, Andre felt a flash of panic. This was so far from the interview he'd prepared for. But then he remembered the conversation in the car, how naturally he'd spoken about his ideas without the pressure of a formal interview. He took a deep breath and opened his portfolio. My approach focuses on modular, adaptable systems, he began, pulling out his diagrams. Despite his racing heart, his voice was steady as he explained his design philosophy. The committee listened attentively, some taking notes. When he finished, Dr. Chen asked several pointed questions about implementation challenges. Andre answered honestly, acknowledging the areas where his design needed refinement while defending its core principles. What strikes me, David said after several minutes of technical discussion, is how similar your priorities are to our company values. The emphasis on adaptability, community needs, long-term resilience rather than just efficiency. Harold, who had been watching silently, nodded. That's precisely what caught my attention as well. He turned to the committee. I believe Mr. Thompson would be an excellent addition to the CRI team. Unless there are objections, I'd like to offer him the position effective immediately. Andre tried to keep his expression professional, but he couldn't quite hide his shock. From missing his interview to being offered the job in the span of 2 hours, it seemed impossible. Dr. Chen exchanged glances with the other committee members before nodding. I think we can dispense with the usual procedures in this case. Mr. Thompson's qualifications are evident. She smiled at Andre for the first time. Welcome to Horizon. Hands were extended across the table. Andre shook them one by one, still dazed by the turn of events. As the meeting concluded, Harold guided him out of the conference room and toward an office at the end of the hall. My office, Harold explained as they entered a spacious room with the same spectacular view. I wanted a moment to speak privately before you get swept up in HR paperwork. Andre stood by the window, looking out at the city where he'd spent so many months sending out resumes and facing rejection. "I don't know what to say, sir. Thank you doesn't seem adequate." Harold waved his hand dismissively. "You earned this position with your ideas and your character. I merely recognized what was already there." He paused, studying Andre. "You know, when I founded this company 30 years ago, I had a simple philosophy, one that's guided us through every decision, every hire, every project." He pointed to a framed quote on the wall behind his desk. Andre read it aloud. "We hire character. We train skill." "Exactly," Harold said, smiling. "Skills can be taught. Knowledge can be acquired. But character, that comes from somewhere deeper." He extended his hand. "I believe you'll do remarkable things here, Andre." As they shook hands, Andre felt the weight of the moment. How a simple decision to help someone in need had altered his entire trajectory. "I won't let you down, sir." "I know you won't," Harold replied. "Now let's get you to HR to sort out the details. I believe they'll want you to start on Monday." He paused at the door. "Oh, and Andre, perhaps we should get you that clean shirt after all. You'll be meeting a lot of new colleagues today." Andre laughed, looking down at his dirty clothes. "I think that might be a good idea." As they walked down the corridor, employees nodding respectfully to Harold as they passed, Andre thought about how he would tell this story to his mother tonight. How a flat tire and his father's oft-repeated advice about character had changed everything. 2 weeks had passed since that fateful morning when Andre had stopped to help an elderly man with a flat tire. Now he stood in his small apartment, adjusting his tie in the mirror. It wasn't the same tie he'd worn that day. This one was new, purchased with his signing bonus from Horizon Technologies. The past 14 days had been a whirlwind. After meeting the hiring committee and completing paperwork with HR, Andre had been given a tour of the research facilities that would become his new workplace. He'd met his team members, been assigned a workspace with a view of the city, and even received company gear with the Horizon logo. His phone buzzed with a text from his roommate. "Good luck on your first real day, big shot." Andre smiled. His friends had been both shocked and thrilled by his story. No one could believe his luck, or rather his character, had led to such an opportunity. His mother had cried when he called her with the news. "Your father always said your heart would take you further than your head," she told him. "He's smiling down on you right now." Andre checked his watch, a gift from his mother to celebrate the new job. He had plenty of time to catch the bus, but today he'd splurged on a rideshare. Some occasions called for small luxuries. The car pulled up exactly on time. As Andre settled into the backseat, he thought about how much had changed. The weight of student loans still existed, but now there was a clear path to paying them off. The constant worry about finding work in his field had evaporated, and most importantly, he had the chance to bring his ideas to life. When he arrived at Horizon's gleaming headquarters, he felt a strange mix of nerves and belonging. The security guard at the entrance checked his newly issued employee badge. "First day, Mr. Thompson?" "That obvious, huh?" Andre smiled. "You've got that look," the guard said kindly. Excited but a little terrified. "Don't worry, it's a good place to work." Andre took the elevator to the 23rd floor, where the Community Resilience Initiative team was located. As he exited, Dr. Chen spotted him and waved him over. "Right on time," she said. "The team's eager to meet you. Harold, Mr. Richardson, has been telling everyone about your microgrid concepts." "No pressure there," Andre said with a nervous laugh. Dr. Chen smiled. "Don't worry. We don't expect miracles on day one. Though from what I've seen of your work, I wouldn't rule them out entirely." She led him to a conference room where about a dozen people sat around a table. Some were dressed in business attire, others more casually. All looked up with interest as Andre entered. "Everyone, this is Andre Thompson, our newest systems engineer," Dr. Chen announced. "Andre, meet the CRI team." For the next hour, Andre listened as team members explained their roles and current projects. The scope of the initiative was even more ambitious than he'd imagined. Horizon wasn't just developing technology for wealthy markets, they were creating solutions for communities often left behind by technological progress. "Your microgrid concept is exactly what we need for the rural implementation phase," explained a woman named Priya, the project lead. "We've been struggling with adaptability across different environments." As the meeting concluded, Andre noticed Harold Richardson standing in the doorway, observing quietly. The CEO motioned for him to step outside. "How's your first day going?" Harold asked as they walked down the corridor. "It's overwhelming," Andre admitted, "but in the best possible way." Harold nodded. "All beginnings should be a little overwhelming. Means you're stretching yourself." He paused by a window overlooking the city. "I wanted to show you something before you dive into your work." They took the elevator to the lobby, then walked to a corridor Andre hadn't noticed during his previous visits. At the end was a wall covered with photographs, hundreds of them showing communities around the world. "These are places where Horizon technology has been implemented," Harold explained. "Not just our commercial projects, but our humanitarian initiatives." Andre moved closer, studying the images. Solar arrays in desert communities, wind turbines on coastal plains, children studying under lights in remote villages. "This is why we exist," Harold said quietly. "Not for quarterly profits or shareholder value, though those matter too. We exist to make a difference in real people's lives." One photo caught Andre's eye, an elderly woman standing proudly beside a small solar installation outside a modest home. Something about her dignified expression reminded him of his grandmother. "This is exactly why I wanted to be an engineer," Andre said. "To create solutions that matter," Harold smiled. "I know. That's why you're here." He checked his watch. "I should let you get back to your team. Just wanted you to see this, to understand what we're really doing." As they walked back, Harold added, "By the way, the board approved the pilot program for your microgrid system. We're looking at 3 potential sites, including a coastal town very similar to your grandmother's." Andre stopped walking. "Already? But I just started today." "The work doesn't wait for formalities," Harold said. "Your designs were impressive enough to move forward immediately. Of course, you'll be refining them with the team, but we saw no reason to delay." For a moment, Andre was speechless. Then he managed, "Thank you. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Harold replied. "Character speaks louder than credentials, remember?" Over the following months, Andre threw himself into his work with passion and purpose. The pilot program took shape, moved through testing, and was finally scheduled for implementation. His microgrid design, refined with input from the team, exceeded even their optimistic projections for efficiency and adaptability. 6 months after his first day, Andre stood in a small coastal town much like his grandmother's, watching as the final connections were made to the microgrid system that would give this community energy independence. Residents gathered around, some skeptical, some hopeful. An elderly woman approached him as he checked the control panel. "This will really keep our power on during storms?" she asked. Andre nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Even if the main grid goes down, you'll still have essential services. Refrigeration, medical equipment, cooling centers." She studied him for a moment. "You remind me of my grandson. He's studying to be an engineer, too." She gestured to a young man helping the installation crew. "That's him over there. He says your company is hiring interns next summer." Andre smiled. "We certainly are. Tell him to apply. We're always looking for people with the right character." That evening, as the system powered up successfully for the first time, Andre called his mother. "It works, Mom," he said, watching as lights came on throughout the community. "Everything we hoped for. Your father would be so proud," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "He always knew you'd make a difference." As Andre ended the call, he noticed Harold standing nearby, observing the community's reaction to their new power system. "You were right," Andre said as his mentor approached, "about character being the scarcest resource. I see it every day in our work, how integrity shapes everything we do." Harold nodded. "It's a lesson I learned the hard way over decades. You seem to understand it instinctively." He gestured to the illuminated community. "This is just the beginning, you know. The board approved expansion to 20 more sites next year." Andre looked out at the lights shining across the town, lights that would stay on when the next storm came. "I can't believe how much has happened in 6 months. Sometimes life changes direction in an instant," Harold said. "Like when a young man decides to stop and help an old man with a flat tire, even though he has somewhere important to be." Later that night, back in his hotel room, Andre found an email from Harold. It contained a photo taken earlier that day, Andre explaining the system to community members, the sunset illuminating everything in golden light. The subject line read, "Character speaking louder than credentials." Andre saved the image, thinking how he would frame it for his office wall, a reminder of how one decision, to help someone when there was nothing in it for him, had changed everything. As he drifted off to sleep, he thought about his father's words. Passed down like an inheritance more valuable than any fortune, character speaks louder than credentials. In a world of technical skills and impressive resumes, it was still the choices people made when no one was watching that revealed who they truly were. Or sometimes, as Andre had discovered, when the CEO was watching while pretending to be just an old man with a flat tire.